It's going to be another week of a trial within a trial in the Senzo Meyiwa murder case. Well, the court has been hearing arguments regarding what evidence should be allowed. The outcome of this could determine the projection of the future case. So let's unpack what's been unfolding thus far with eNCA reporter Manqoba Mchunu joining me, of course, for this conversation. And colleague, a very warm good morning to you. I think let's track back into what evidence has been relayed so far inside court. The cross-examination of Senzo Meyiwa also being witnessed.
Well, certainly, Tumelo, you recall that we're in a trial within a trial when it comes to this particular case. So what this trial within a trial is trying to determine is the admissibility of two of the confessions that were made by accused number 1 and number 2. So that is Muzisibia as well as Bongani Ntanzi. So there's been quite a number of witnesses that have been called to the stand to come and testify on how those confessions were made. Of course, what the defense is contending is that these confessions were not made freely and voluntarily, and that those two accused had been assaulted, they've been tortured, and even tubed by the police into making these confessions, which is quite crucial for this trial within a trial because it's looking at how exactly they were obtained. So we had police officer Senzo Meyiwa coming to the stand, and he, of course, is one of the detectives in the Senzo Meyiwa murder case, and last week his evidence-in-chief was led and he was being cross-examined this week. And I think what emanated firstly from his cross-examination from the lawyers representing accused 1 and 2 was around just the duration it took police or the period or the time it took police to charge Bongani Ntanzi for the death of Senzo Meyiwa. You recall, Tumelo, that he was arrested on the 16th of June in 2020, but we got to hear that he was only charged on the 26th of October that same year for the murder of Senzo Meyiwa. This was about 4 months after he had been arrested. So there were questions around that, but take a listen to what the defense had to argue in court.
When a person is arrested, you understand, under Section 40 of the Criminal Procedure Act, with or without a warrant, must be charged within 48 hours, according to the Constitution. He was not arrested on the 26th of October 2020, but instead he was arrested on the 16th of June 2020. Do you understand that? 48 hours lapsed years after, or months, sorry.
When we arrested Ntanzi, it was not for the murder of Senzo Meyiwa.
There was a big contention about the 17 hours with which Ntanzi was booked out before the confession. I mean, what was the defense stance on this matter?
Well, you recall, Tumelo, in fact, let's remind our viewers that, Ntanzi is one of those accused that did not only make one confession, but he made two of those confessions. So he made the first confession before a police officer at the Moroka police station, and this was on the 19th of June, just 3 days after he had been arrested. He made the second confession before Magistrate Vivian Cronje at the Boksburg Magistrate Court, and this was on the 24th of June in 2020. So what Ntanzi has told the court is that before he made these confessions, he had been assaulted, he had been tubed. He says he was taken to two secluded areas, one in the East Rand and another one in Soweto, where he was assaulted by the police. He was forced into signing a prepared document, and he insists that he made that particular confession was in fact not from him. It was under duress. And he maintains that it's the police and the Metro Police officers that had escorted them that were responsible for that assault and torture that had taken place. So there was a question when it emerged in court that Ntanzi, in fact, had been booked out on the 18th of June. And this is a day before he made that first confession. He had been booked out for 17 hours by Senzo Meyiwa. And Senzo Meyiwa says this is a time when they had gone to the mine to check out an alibi that Ntanzi had given to police when he was asked where he had been on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. He had indicated he was working, he was at work at a mine in Carltonville. So he says they had then gone to this mine to check out this alibi, and they booked Ntanzi out at 8 o'clock on the 18th, but we understand he was only brought back the next morning around 2:30 in the morning. So the question was really what was happening in those 17 hours. And of course, the defense insists this is the time that Ntanzi had been assaulted and tortured into making that confession. But of course, Vusimuzi Mokhane denying that. Take a listen.
You took him out 8:05 in the morning, then you brought him back on the 19th of June 2020 at 25 to 3 early hours. If I calculate these hours you spend with accused number 2, it gives me plus or minus 17 hours. During these ungodly hours, what were you doing with accused number 2?
Like I explained that he had agreed that he was going to take us to his workplace at the mine.
So it seems, Manqoba, that there was a bit of confusion with regards to these 17 hours and Ntanzi being booked out, of course, before this confession. But was there a resolution in sight? Because we did see Advocate Manqoba Mchunu quite adamant to get to the facts.
Well, the interesting bit, Tumelo, is the reason and explanation that Vusi Mokhane had given to court as to what really happened, where they were this entire time. So he says that he had been doing various investigations, and therefore, after they had left that mine, he had then gone with Ntanzi to conduct these different investigations. And there was a question, of course, as to what those investigations entailed, given that, Ntanzi would have long been taken to his cell by then. There was about a 14-hour period that was unaccounted for. There are claims that he was assaulted. And of course, what the defense, or rather what Mokhane had said, is that the reason why he had gone with Ntanzi is because Bongani Ntanzi had indicated that he did not want to go back to his cell yet. He elected to go with the Mokhane because he said he would be bored if he's taken back in his cell. And of course, the defense is not buying it. They are insisting that this is the time that Ntanzi had been assaulted. We also heard about the request that was made by the court as far as those investigations are concerned. The court saying that it wants to see, what those investigations were. So they ordered Mokhane to bring a list of those investigations that he had conducted on that particular day. And of course, he did bring that list, but there was also an issue with the accused having seen that particular list. But perhaps we'll get into that in the next hour as to the details of what transpired from there. But perhaps let's take a listen, Tumelo, to the reason that Vusimuzi Mokhane gave to court as far as why Bongani Ntanzi had gone with him.
Why was he not taken back again after you've verified such information? Why was he not immediately taken back to Pretoria in the North Police Station? Instead, you had to book him in 2:30 early hours in the morning.
He did not have a problem going with us, because when we asked him if he was okay with going with us, he agreed, because also there was the problem that if he was taken back to the cell, he was going to be locked up alone and was going to get bored.
And I suppose just briefly before I let you go there, colleague, what else can we expect in the coming weeks for this trial?
Well, quite a lot, Tumelo. In fact, the cross-examination of Sergeant Vusimuzi Mokhane is still not done yet. And where we left off on Friday was another hurdle as far as one of the applications that was brought in by the state. So this is an application that has to do with the introduction of new evidence in court. So the state wants to introduce new evidence that relates to a vehicle tracking system of a vehicle that was driven by Vusimuzi Mokhane. It still all has to do with those 17 hours. And of course, quite a lot is expected in court. The defense is challenging and objecting the introduction of that new evidence, while the state insists it wants to show exactly what happened in those 17 hours. So we're still expecting arguments to be heard as far as that application is concerned when this matter resumes tomorrow.
eNCA's Manqoba Mchunu, thank you so much for this update. As we